Okay, in the last recording, we generated the code that takes whatever's in this list size, generates that many random numbers, puts them into this list box. We also discovered that in the process, whenever we add anything to a list box, it's displayed as a string. So if we want to sort those, and we do, we had to format our numbers with leading spaces, which is, we could put, it's harder with put leading zeros on there, but we've put leading spaces on them so that they sort properly. That's what the string format 3 is all about. And then we did the sorted. Remember, the list box itself has a sorted property. When we set it to true, it sorts the list box. So at that point, my list is sorted. I then turn that flag right back off again so that the next list that comes in initially comes up unsorted. So the user has control of every list, deciding whether they want to see it sorted or not. The next thing I want to do, let me just run that real quick. The next thing I want to do is say, okay, here's my numbers. I want to generate some statistics. But notice that this combo box is disabled. This is something that I know the lab assistants have been helping a number of you with your math program, enabling and disabling stuff so that the user can't accidentally change the operation before they've given you an answer. The user can't enter an answer until they've picked an operation, and so on. In this case, I didn't want the user selecting any statistic until they generate numbers. So at this point, once the numbers have been generated, then I want to turn this back on again. So once the numbers have been generated, my combo box, which has a name, .enabled equals true. Simple to do, but sometimes thinking about what should be and shouldn't be enabled and when and where is complicated. Can be complicated, can be long to do all of the things that you need to do. So with that one line of code, I've now added a feature to my program. Notice that this box is still disabled until I generate numbers, and now it's live. It was always there. I could have hidden it and then make it appear. That's another option. In this case, I decided to disable it, saying it's here. You can use it, but not yet. This box, what's in it? Nothing. Now, I've already showed you 2 ways to add things to a list box. Combo boxes and list boxes are cousins. They share a lot of the same features. If I go to Design View and click on my combo box, it has a collection called items. We could, at design time, put stuff in there. What I mean by design time is do it right here, click the thing, and start typing stuff in here. We could do that. Nothing wrong with it. It's another one of those things I'm having arguments with myself on is, do I do it at design time or do I do it at runtime? When does it matter? When doesn't it? I'm not 100% sure. In this case, the list doesn't change too much. Never changes, actually. So putting it in at design time probably isn't a bad idea. But I want to show you another technique. Let's go to the code, and somewhere near the bottom is form load. In form load, I call another procedure. You did that in the tooltips lab. You created a procedure called set tooltips so that you didn't clutter up form load with a whole bunch of tooltip things. You put them into a separate method, a separate method. You can define as many of these methods as you want. You define them to break up code into smaller parts, to break up logic. In this case, I don't want to clutter up loop statistics with all of my combo box stuff. I'm sorry, I don't want to clutter up form load with all my combo box stuff, so I'm going to define another method. You define these methods just like these others, private, void, and then you pick a name. Notice when I pick a name, I use title case. That way I can tell it's mine. Next semester, you'll learn when and when you don't put things in the parentheses. For this semester, just leave them out. What happens here is when we get to this line, it's like me calling an expert. I hire Yuping to do my load statistics stuff. And so I have my checklist of things that I need to do, put 50 in the text box. Okay, did that. Call the load statistic names expert. I call Yuping up on the phone, say, Yuping, I need you to do your job. He's going to have a checklist that he goes through and he does his job. I'm on hold. This method is waiting right here until Yuping says, I'm done. And when he says I'm done, then I carry on and I disable the combo box. I call them experts. It seems to get into, everybody can kind of relate to it. I'm calling an expert to do something, kind of like a VP. Form load is the vice president of the program here, runs it. And whenever he needs a little bit of help, he calls a specialist. The specialist does their job. I don't even know how he does that stuff. Magic. It's kind of like get random that I gave you. How's that work? Magic, I don't care. I don't care how he does his job. I just know that when he's done, I trust him that it's going to be done right. And if it's not, I will reprogram him and fix this checklist. So, to then invoke him, to call him, that's what it's called in programming, to call him, you simply refer to the name, and if you need to put anything in parentheses, you do, but we don't, because he doesn't expect anything. This automatically transfers control to him and puts this method on hold. In this sequence, he could say, that's too complicated for me. I'm going to call Pam, and Pam can go, you know, that's complicated. I'm going to call Karen, and then I'm going to call Tyler. And then when Tyler's done, he comes back and Pam says, okay, I'm done, goes back to Yuping. Yuping says, I'm done, returns it to me, and all this is taken care of by the compiler. Who called who and where do I go back to? All happens automatically. So right here in form load, I'm calling load statistics. In load statistics, I now want to add the names of the statistics that the user can choose from. I could use radio buttons. There's 7 of them. That's not bad. But I've decided, since it's the looping combo box list box chapter, to use the combo box. We add items to the combo box exactly the same way that we add items to the list box. Name of the item, dot items, dot add, and I want to add, and this time I'm going to manually type stuff in, the word count. That's the first statistic that I'm going to let my users add. I'll stop a second. And I'm going to do the next one I don't want you to follow. I'm going to say CMB statistic dot items dot add dot sum. And the next one, combo statistic dot items dot add. It's got to be a better way. There is. That's a little bit shorter. We can define a variable, sounds like a variable, using a keyword var, that is kind of like a nickname or a shortcut for something. Very similar to that pointer. But in this case, it's literally a shortcut. I'm going to call it CMB, and that's equal to CMB statistic dot items. Semicolon. And now, whenever I want CMB statistic dot item, I can just use the nickname, the alias CMB. So it's just a shortcut. You normally define it at the top, and it's usually within a method. Define it at the top, and then from then on, whenever I say CMB, that means CMB dot items. Couldn't I put the dot add on there? No. Can't go that far. Notice that this CMB then follows with a dot. The dot is usually followed after it. So now I can add things very quickly. CMB dot add sum. Now you can follow along. Dot add average. All I'm doing is adding stuff to my combo box items list, collection, excuse me. And what else do we want? The min, the max, the range, and all. CMB dot add the minimum. These are just text items. What we're later going to have to figure out is which one did they pick? Jeez. Piece of cake. One question, 7 answers. Switch statement. We can ask which combo box item did they pick, and then go from there. Let's give that a quick test. Unfortunately, we got to generate numbers to test it. No big deal. And there's my list. Now notice that's not sorted. Could sort it. It's like any other combo box. So what Paul and I were talking about during the break is sorted is actually a property that you have available to you at design time. So you can say when you're designing this program forever, I want this list sorted. Be careful when you do that. If I'm not going to do it here, if I change that to true, it will immediately sort. No, it won't. Never mind. Anything that's in the collection at design time is immediately sorted, and there's no going back. It's one of the reasons I like filling my list at runtime, because I can have it unsorted and then sort it later. But if you know it's always going to be sorted, you can set it to true here, and it will always be sorted, and you don't have to write any code for it. So my stuff is in there. And if I drop it down, I can pick stuff and then change my mind. Nothing's happening yet because we haven't coded that. That's next. So now what? Now, well, I'll tell you what, let's pause a little bit here. There's another feature of combo boxes. So I'm going to go home. And I'm going to jump to combo boxes and see if there's anything else we have to talk about here. Oh yeah. Combo boxes come in 3 styles. The first style is a simple combo box that really looks like a text box with stuff underneath it. I have never used that. Why would I want a text box with a list underneath it that I can pick from? The list never goes away. The nice thing about combo boxes is it stays there. It takes up one line on the form. When you want it, drops down. And then fills back in again. Collapses again automatically. I like that. There's also the default mode is drop down, which is what we have. And finally, there's a drop down list mode. What's nice about drop down list is it tells the combo box the user must pick something from the list. Whoa, we should use that here. Yeah, but there's a side effect that I don't like. All of my combo boxes are drop downs. What that means, don't have to follow here, is that I could ask for the Volcker statistic. Ew. That's not good. No, it's not. So I should make this a drop down list. Except for something that's coming up later. But recognize that there's 3 different styles. Where you set them is in design mode. That's the drop down style. It's drop down. The other 2 are here. I almost never change it. Why'd you tell me about it? Text. Combo box has text properties. You saw I was just typing in there. The user can type their own. That's another nice thing about combo boxes. If you don't see what you want on the list and it's legal, type in your own. If the user picks from the combo box, whatever they picked is automatically inserted in the text box. And so the text property is the one that we use the most with combo boxes to find out what did they pick. The text property. Because it not only says what did they pick, but it also tells us what did they type in case they type it. So we use that quite a bit. Whenever the user selects an item from the list, that value is copied to the text box, just said that. And there's a few other properties we can get at. Items we've already talked about, that's our collection. Selected index. Index in computing is a number, typically. If we, for some reason, wanted to know which number did they pick, where count is 0 and sum is 1 and average is 2, remember computers start counting. If we wanted to know which number they picked, we could check the selected index. Why would I want the number? Might not. One of the nice things about selected index So if you set it to -1, that means nothing's picked, right? Can't be an index -1. Nothing's picked, and it actually clears the list box. So it's a quick way. One of the things we use it for is to quickly select something or to quickly clear the list. It's also a way for us to check to see if the user typed something in the text box. If they type something in the text box, the selected index is -1. Here's the kicker, even if it's on the list. Ew. So if I type the word count, the selected index, and even if I capitalize it right, selected index is -1. You didn't select anything, you typed something. Doesn't recognize that it's on the list. Tim doesn't like that. Well, I gotta make Tim happy, and I will. We know about sorted. We can also get at the selected item. In this class, we won't need that, but it is possible to, in that list box, put an entire description of a student, their student ID, their first name, their last name, their address, their phone number, their everything, and put it in the list box. And then when we click on one, we click on Rachel's, we say, give me the selected item. It gives me everything that I have about Rachel and not just her name. Beyond the scope of this class, but it can be done. A combo box, you can only pick one item from the list. A list box, you can select multiple. Now, we're not going to be selecting from this list box. That's a different problem we'll do a little later. But there is a multi-select property. Selection mode. 1, multi-simple, multi-extended. Multi-simple, simple, you just click on more than one and it selects more than one. And if you click it again, it turns it off. Extended uses the classic Windows keys, Control, Shift, to select and deselect. So you can click one, Shift, click another and get everything in between. Control click to turn something in the middle off. If you need multi-select, it's got to be a list box. Combo box, you can only pick one. What else do we want to know? Here we go. This is a cool feature. It showed up many years ago now, but it was long overdue when it came. Autocomplete. Imagine if I was filling this combo box from a database. Go out to my database and give me a list of all the students, hundreds. And they go into this combo box. And now I want to go find somebody. Right? And my luck is I'm looking for Rachel, and of course she's down there with all the S's and all the other Schmitz and kind of tough to find. Combo boxes today have an autocomplete mode. You type a couple letters, it filters the list. Now in this little combo box that we have with its 7 items in it, it's not terribly handy, but it does have its potentials. There are 3 different autocomplete modes. I actually have a demo that I used to do for this, but I think the pictures will tell me. This is, what's this mode? Autocomplete source, list items, 3 modes. Suggest is the first one. All of these modes, the combo box style, must be drop down. If you change it to drop down list, they kind of still work, but not the way you expect. And I love autocomplete, and that's why I never use drop down list, because autocomplete and drop down list don't play well together. And I would prefer autocomplete. And there's a way for me to write code to say, is what the user typed still on the list? Go ahead.
Drop down list, you can't type in the text box.
You can type to filter to jump down into the list, and that's just it. And what happens if I want to get to Sam Schmitz, TZ? Right? And then I have to really quick type SCHMITZ. And I've seen some of you really type fast. Right? It would be nearly impossible. I might get lucky and type SCH, and it'll get me into the SCHs, but if I have a lot of SCH students, I then still have to scroll. You're right, you can't type in it. You can press letters and it'll jump down into the list, but that part I don't like. I like the filtering a whole lot better. And that's what autocomplete does. The first type of autocomplete mode is suggest. You type a letter, it suggests the people in the list who start with that letter. So in this case, I had a bunch of names, typed a C, I got a Charles, and I got a Chuck, and I got a Claude. That's suggest. Notice you'll see the difference here in a minute. Here's append. I type a CH, and it suggests for me, hey, do you want Charles? It fills the rest in, but notice it's highlighted. And being Windows experts, you all know if I start typing what happens to the stuff in the highlight, it gets replaced, right? And so I can type as many as I want, and then as soon as I see what I want, I press tab and move on. Not bad. Here's my favorite. Suggest and append. It automatically picks the first one on the list, shows you the list, so if you want, you can jump in here and click it and not have to keep typing. So when I type SCHM, I get Rachel's name, and then I get Sam Schmitz or Nick Schmitz, and then Sam Schmitz, and I can see them all very much in the list. This only works well when you're in a drop-down list. Let's play with that a little bit. Let's go into our combo box here and change its autocomplete mode. When you do autocomplete, there's two things that you have to set, and this is a very common mistake. I'm going to get this email 10 times. And Paul's going to answer the question 10 more times. How come my autocomplete isn't working? Because you forgot to set the second part. There's two parts. First of all, mode. There's our modes. None, which means no autocomplete. Don't like that. I like suggest append. And you must tell it the source. And notice all these lovely sources. Some of these are built in. I've never used any of the other ones. The only one I use is list items. Suggest append from the items in the list. So now when we run, generate some numbers, my list is available. If I click in here, and by the way, that might be next, right? Set focus to here. So it's already sitting in there blinking, ready for me to type. Let's see, we have an average, and we have a range, and we have an all. If I type an A, how come they're sorted? That's the way suggest append works. And you would want it to, right? Because if I'm looking through a list of names, I wouldn't want to necessarily have to sort those to filter them and get them in the right order. And now, because I'm also in append mode, it's suggesting, how about one of these two? It's also suggesting, I'll bet you want all, don't you? If you don't, just press the next letter, and now it shows you everything starts with AV, and I'm done. It's kind of like IntelliSense, right? When we're programming. Here's a list of all the stuff that starts with what you just typed. Which one would you like? This is a great feature. Makes combo boxes, particularly combo boxes that have a lot of items in them, easy to use. You just press enter or tab, and it fills it in and even capitalizes it the same. What's the selected index? 2. Remember, we started at 0. 0, 1, 2. You get used to that very quickly. When you're looking at the third item, it's number 2. When you're looking at the 56th item, it's number 55. We get used to that very quickly. We don't usually care about the selected index, but we could ask in a switch statement, what's the selected index? And if it's 0, that means count. If it's 1, that means sum. If it's 2, that means average. That's a little cryptic. But when are we going to do this? When do we start processing this stuff? Well, any questions about autocomplete? It's pretty simple. Two things, though. Pretty simple in that I always suggest suggest append. If you have different feelings, then change it. All right. But I prefer suggest append. Gives me all the help I can stand. But you must also set the list items. So don't forget that part. It's right underneath. Without both of them, it doesn't work. Because you say suggest append, but it doesn't have anything to pick from, doesn't know what to pick from, and it doesn't do anything. But in order for this to work well, we have to have a drop-down mode of, not normal, where is it? Drop-down style of drop-down. If you change that to suggest append or to drop-down list, try it once. It doesn't work anywhere near as well. Okay. How do we normally, if I want to find out what event we normally respond to, we double click, right? We did it with checkboxes, we did it with radio buttons, we did it with buttons, combo box, double click. There's already an event. Oh, what a nice guy. But notice the name of the event. The selected index has changed. So if the user drops down the list and picks maximum, that changes the selected index. if they're using suggest append and they pick one and they finish typing and they press tab, the selected index changes. Not until they finish typing. So whenever the selected index changed, I'm going to see which one they picked. Did they pick count? If so, do something. Did they pick sum? If so, do something. Average, minimum, maximum, range, all do something. And if it's none of those, I just skip it. So if they're in the middle of typing, it doesn't do anything. But it's a little weird to me that it's the selected index changed event. Basically says whenever the user picks something new from the list. Very nice. Before I forget, remember that part that Tim was upset about? Even if I type something in this box and it's on the list, with auto suggest or with autocomplete, it finds it. You don't even have to capitalize it right. It finds it. And so the selected index here is 0. It's not -1. If we didn't have autocomplete on, it would be -1 because I typed it manually. Almost always. I don't remember a combo box that I don't have that turned on for. All right, so what do I want to do? Every time that the user clicks on one of these things, I want to display the statistic that they picked in this list box. It's another list box. Why is it a list box? Because it's easy to display in. I'm not going to write any code for it, so it's not going to do anything if the user clicks on anything. But I can add things to it very, very quickly. I could use a label, except I can't scroll. Could use a text box, make it read only, and I have to concatenate. With a list box, I just add stuff. It's easier. And it kind of looks like a text box when we're running. The user can't tell. It makes a nice list. So every time the user picks something like count here, I'm going to add to my list box the appropriate value for count. So let's go start with that one. If the user picks count, and by the way, this is another thing I would like you to do. Actually, I'm marking you wrong in Unit 5 stuff. If you have a switch statement, either all the commands are straight across, and there better not be more than 2, your command and break, or all the commands are underneath. There shouldn't be 1 straight across and then 2 or 3 down. That's confusing. Maintenance nightmare, because I'm looking at these and I might miss that up there. So they're either all underneath or they're all to the side. And all to the side means 1 statement plus a break. That's all you get. Anything more than that, they should be underneath, which means most of your Unit 5 programs, everything's underneath. Here, I'm going to put it underneath just to be consistent. Some of these are going to be a little harder to process. Count. Do I have a method? Do I have an expert that does count? I don't think so. Nope. Okay, so for the count, how do I know how many there are? We could write a loop and say go through each one, and when you get to the, no, how do we know when to quit? When we get to the end. How do we know? It's the item list knows how many items it has in it. So we can simply say that list statistics dot items dot add. That's my list of output, right? What do I want to add? My CMB, no. List numbers dot items dot count. So this says go into the list box, find out how many items are in there, and grab it. The point here is the list box always knows how many elements it has in it. And then take this and put it in there. You know what? Let's put a nice label on it, count, colon, and concatenate that. It's going to be a string anyways. And I believe I'm missing a semicolon. So this says figure out how many items are in the list of numbers and add that to the list of statistics. Let's try it. Go. Go. Now I'm not even going to sort them, doesn't matter. Drop this down and say, give me the count. As soon as I click it, adds it. Change the count to 35. New numbers. Why does it still say 50? That's the old one. What we should also do every time we generate a new set of numbers is clear this out. Because it's new numbers, the statistics are going to be different. So we got to remember to do that. So I'm just going to say, give me the count again. And there we go. So let's go now to our button new and clear out the statistics. I think there's even a comment there. Oh, remove the previous statistics. lststats.items.clear. I've actually seen somebody write code that says for each item on the list, remove it. Whew. Actually, that's not legal because when you remove it, it's not there anymore and the list pointer gets all confused. You have to remove from the bottom up. Now I can't use a for each loop anymore. Don't write a for loop. It's built in. Remember I said that half the stuff I used to use for loops for been replaced by built-in code. Here's one of them. So let's test that one more time. New numbers. Give me the count, 50. Change that to 33 numbers. New numbers. This got cleared out. Count 33. You see another way to do that? Couldn't I just steal this? Yeah. But we could steal that number, right? Because it's right then just parse it. But in the future, you're going to go out to a database and it's not going to tell you how many records it brought in. You can find out very easily by just saying, give me the item count. The list box always knows how many items it has in it. We could secretly, behind the scenes, generate a random number between 30 and 100 and generate that many random numbers, and we don't know what it is, but the list box does. And we can figure it out from the list box. So this is probably a little easier, a little better way to learn how to, if I can find it again, there it is, learn how to find out how many items are in the list. Just ask it. Wait a minute, is it lying to me? No, because I said give me 50 and it gave me 50, but I thought they were numbered from 0 to, what's the last number in the list? 49. It takes a little getting used to. When you ask for a count, it gives it to you in human terms. There's 50 items in the list, and there are. From 0 to 49, there are 50 items. The last one's index is not 50, though. That's the thing that will cause you a lot of trouble. If you try to access element number 50, you will get a runtime error for accessing something outside the collection. Doesn't work. So what you, programmer, have to remember is that yes, there's 50 items. There are count items in the list, but the last one is in position, count -1. Always. Takes a little getting used to, but it's so common now that it won't take long. Okay, we have a little more time. Let's tackle the next one. It shouldn't be too tough. Sum. Now I think for this one I have an expert. Can't tell. Let's collapse here. New sort calc average, calc range. I don't see a calc sum. Maybe I'm supposed to create it. Got an average, got a range. Why wouldn't I have a sum? That's a good question. So let's create one. Let's create calc sum. That would go in between these two. And let's create our own. It's good practice. That's probably why I left it out. Private. Pardon me?
It's one method down, actually.
Is it? Calc range. That's not the sum. Determine the max, determine the min.
I'm saying you should create it one method down.
Oh, you're right. Thank you. Alphabetically. -1/2 later if you don't fix it. Private. Void. And there's lots of examples now, right? I can just steal the examples. Just change the name. One more thing. I have to call this. Just hiring Yuping to be my expert doesn't mean he's going to do his job. He's one of those with a checklist. Until you tell him to go through that checklist, he just sits there. So back here in my, where was I? That was combo box statistics selected index changed. I have to call him. Whenever the user clicks sum from the combo box, call the expert. That's all I got to do to call him. I call him by name. He said, I heard you. Gets to work. And when he's done, he hollers back, says, I'm done. In the meantime, this is sitting here on hold. So here's calc sum. How would you add these up? What would you do? Come on, chickens. I know you know how to do this. You just don't want to speak up. Okay, I'll tell you what I would do. I would start on the first one, add it to the next one, and then add the next one to the total, the next one to the total, next one, next. Ooh, start at the first, go to the end. Sounds like for each. Is that what you said? Yes, that's what you said. For each. All right, start at the first, go to the end of an existing collection. That's a for each loop. I'm going to go through each item in that list and add it. There's one little kick here though. Those items in the list, what are they? What type? Text. If I add, I think I'm going to end up concatenating. I got to be careful here. Let's test it and find out. Actually, I probably should get an error. Let's find out. All right, in here, I need a variable to keep my total. And that's, my numbers are integers. Because I used get random to generate them, they have to be integers. So I'm going to create an integer total and initialize it to 0 right away. Then Cian said use a for each loop. For each. What type is each item in the list? Let's see if it'll let me do int. It might not, but we're going to try. Int, let's call it number, in, where's my list of numbers? In the list, lstnumbers.items. That's my collection. So this is what my pointer, what do I want to call each one as I'm walking through? And this is the collection. Any complaints? Whoa, not yet. So maybe the list box is going to be extra special to me here and say, you know what, you say they're integers, they kind of look like integers, so as they're coming out, I'll turn them into integers for you. Let's see if this works. What do I do with those? Add them to the total. Notice I don't have to tell it which number. Whatever number you're currently looking at, the for each loop automatically moves the number pointer down the list. Now I got to check something. I have a sneaking suspicion that I have a class level variable called total. Oh, I have one called sum. Is that what I need? Yep. So I don't need this. Why is it class level? Because later on I'm going to display it. I'm going to add it to the list box in a different place. So this needs to be sum. Go through all the numbers in the list one at a time, add the number to the sum, go to the next one, add the number to the sum, next one, next one, next one. Happens automatically in a for each loop until it hits the end. How does it know? Magic. I don't care. When it hits the end, it quits. That's how a for each loop works. So now over here, I've called my expert, said calculate it, but I still need to add it to the list. So I'm going to say list statistics dot items dot add sum plus the sum. Now we'll find out if this works. I'm still a little suspicious. I'm a little nervous because my list box has got text in it. And this for loop says add up a bunch of text. I think there's going to be some magic involved here. List box is going to go, oh, wait a minute. You want that to be enough? I can take care of that for you. Here we go. Be brave. Uh-oh. Unhandled exception occurred in the loop. Specified cast is not valid. No.
Is it because of your string.format? You added extra spaces?
Probably. Ew. He's right, man, because I put spaces in there. Really? So now how do I deal with that? Got 2 minutes. I got one suspicion, and I'll try different things. If I come up with a better idea because it's in my notes, I'll let you know. I'm going to convert it to a string, and then I'm going to try to parse it. That still makes me nervous, because what happens to the spaces when we try to put those in there? That may not work very well. $50 numbers, somewhere around 50 each, right? Because the average number generated should be 50. 50 times 50 is 2,500. That's in the ballpark. The leading spaces were ignored. Cool. What if I wasn't sure? Here's the solution to that. You can always say, whatever's in there, trim it. Trim means take any white space that's on both sides off. Isn't necessary here. It did it for me anyways. Yes, sir?
Why did mine work with the original one?
With the original?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to come take a look. For right now, that's where we're going to stop. When we calculate the average, what are we going to do? Take the sum. Oh, we know how to calculate that. Can the average call him to do this? Can Lee call Yuping to call? Yeah. So I can say, let's call my average expert. He says, for me to do my job, I need a sum. I know my buddy Yuping's good at that. So he calls him, he gets the sum. He takes the sum, divides by the count, sends it to me and says, there you go, boss. And I go, man, you're a genius. And he gives no credit to Yuping, of course, but we got the answer that we want. Mins and maxes, that's a little trickier. That we'll talk about next time. But remember and recognize that we've also learned a lot about list boxes and combo boxes in the process here. How to use those and these for each loops. I think with most of the stuff that I showed you today, you can get a start. For those of you that are bored and ready to start on your Unit 6 program, aren't many of you, you could get started. Start laying it out. For those of you who are stuck or aggravated with enhanced math and you want to do something different, lay out the assignment tracker and start stuff. I think there's even a starter for it. So you got quite a bit of background now. And we'll review a little bit more, and maybe in 2 hours get close to finishing this on Wednesday, Tuesday, whatever class you guys meet next. See you then.